The massive screens in Earth's Central Command lit up with another rejection notice from the Galactic Council. Admiral Thomas Miller slammed his fist on the desk, the impact echoing through the silent room. 50 years of sanctions had pushed Earth to its limits. Another denial, he growled, looking at the gathered military and political leaders. They won't even consider reviewing our trade status. The room, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, housed Earth's last hope for economic survival. The walls displayed real-time data showing Earth's declining economic indicators. Red warnings flashed everywhere. Food shortages in Africa, energy crisis in Asia, medical supply problems in South America. "We can't keep going like this," said Director Emma White, head of Earth Intelligence. Her weathered face showed the strain of decades fighting against Council restrictions. "Our people are suffering while those aliens sit in their towers, claiming we're too violent to join their precious civilization." The sanctions had started simple enough. Restrictions on faster-than-light technology, limits on colony expansion, and heavy taxes on space trade. But year after year, the Council added more rules, more limitations, until Earth could barely maintain its existing colonies. John Roberts, Earth's chief diplomat, stood up slowly. His gray hair and tired eyes reflected years of failed negotiations with the Council. "I have something you all need to see," he said, his voice trembling slightly. He connected his secure tablet to the main display. Documents, videos, and communication logs filled the screens. The room fell silent as the leaders absorbed what they were seeing. "Is this real?" Admiral Miller asked, his face growing red with anger. "Every bit of it," Roberts replied. "My team spent 3 years gathering this evidence. The Council didn't just restrict us, they actively sabotage Earth's development. Those sanctions were based on completely fabricated data. The evidence was damning. Council members had created false reports about human aggression. They'd staged incidents to make Earth look dangerous. Behind the scenes, they'd feared human potential and decided to cripple Earth's growth before it could challenge their power." Director White's hands shook as she read through the files. "They destroyed our economy on purpose. All those people who died when our colonies couldn't get medical supplies. It was all planned." Admiral Miller stood up, his military uniform crisp despite the late hour. "We've tried playing nice. We've followed their rules. We've begged for fair treatment." He looked at each person in the room. "It's time we showed them exactly why they should have feared us." The room erupted in discussion. Plans that had been theoretical suddenly became real. Earth had secretly prepared for this possibility, building hidden shipyards in asteroid belts, developing new weapons the Council couldn't detect. "If we do this," Roberts warned, "there's no going back. The Council controls most of known space. They have more ships, more resources, more allies." Director White smiled for the first time in years. "But they don't have human determination. They don't have our ability to adapt. And most importantly, they don't know what we're capable of." Admiral Miller pulled up Earth's hidden military assets on the display. "We've been building our forces in secret for 20 years. Every time they pushed us down, we got stronger. Every restriction made us more creative." The planning session lasted through the night. As the first rays of dawn touched the mountain peaks above, Earth's leadership had made their decision. The vote was unanimous. "Send the word to all our hidden bases," Admiral Miller ordered. "Operation Rising Phoenix is now active. We'll show the Council exactly why they should have treated us as equals." As the leaders left the command center, they carried with them the weight of humanity's future. Revenge would come, not in a hot-headed rush of violence, but in a carefully planned operation that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Council had spent 50 years trying to keep humanity down. They were about to learn that keeping humans from rising was like trying to stop a sunrise, impossible and ultimately painful to attempt. Earth's revenge was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Deep within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden shipyards hummed with activity. Admiral Miller stood at the observation deck, watching as the massive form of the EFS Phantom took shape. The ship's dark hull absorbed light, making it almost invisible against the backdrop of space. "How long until she's ready?" he asked the chief engineer, Robert Turner. "2 days," Turner replied, his eyes gleaming with pride. "She's the first of her kind, a perfect blend of human ingenuity and stolen council tech. They won't know what hit them." The Phantom was Earth's newest weapon. Using reverse-engineered council technology combined with human innovations, it could slip through any detection system. But it wasn't alone. Throughout the solar system, similar ships were being prepared in secret facilities. In a secure bunker on Earth's moon, Director White monitored the progress of her agents. Holographic displays showed hundreds of operatives infiltrating key council facilities. Some had been in place for years, gathering intelligence and planting dormant systems. "Team 7 reports success," her assistant announced. "The Council's main defense grid now has our backdoor installed. They still have no idea we can access their systems." White nodded, remembering how the Council had mocked Earth's primitive technology. Their arrogance had made them careless. While they focused on obvious threats, her agents had slipped through gaps in their security. Back on Earth, the training facilities worked around the clock. Special Forces teams practiced with new weapons and tactics. The Council's ships relied heavily on energy shields and automated systems. Earth's forces trained to exploit these weaknesses. "Again," shouted Instructor Mike Davis as his team ran through another simulation. "The Council thinks their shields make them invincible. We'll show them how wrong they are." In orbit around Neptune, the first completed stealth ships ran their final tests. Captain Lisa Stone watched as her crew perfected their maneuvers. The ships moved in perfect synchronization, invisible to even the most advanced Council sensors. "All ships report ready," her communications officer said. "Ghost Squadron is combat ready." Stone allowed herself a small smile. Her squadron had trained for this moment for 3 years. They knew every weakness in Council ship designs, every flaw in their tactics. Meanwhile, Earth's propaganda machine prepared for war. Teams of information specialists crafted messages that would be broadcast throughout Council space. They would reveal the truth about the Council's corruption, turning their own allies against them. "The key is timing," explained Communications Director Paul Green. "When we strike, every species under Council rule will learn how they've been manipulated and exploited." Admiral Miller gathered Earth's military leadership for the final briefing. The holographic display showed their first targets, 12 major Council space stations that controlled key trade routes. "The Council believes their superior numbers make them invulnerable," Miller said. "They've forgotten that humans have been fighting against superior forces throughout our history. We've learned to strike where it hurts most." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Earth's stealth ships would appear simultaneously at all 12 stations. Before the Council could respond, their defense systems would be disabled by pre-planted viruses. The stations would fall within minutes. "Remember," Miller continued, "this isn't just about revenge. We're fighting for Earth's future and for every species the Council has oppressed." As the meeting ended, final preparations began across the solar system. Ships moved into position, crews ran last-minute checks, and weapons were armed. Earth's hidden fleet was ready. In his private quarters, Admiral Miller looked at an old photo of Earth taken from space. The beautiful blue planet had suffered under Council rule for too long. Soon, they would show the galaxy that humanity wasn't just another species to be controlled and exploited. "Send the final authorization," he ordered. "Operation Rising Phoenix begins in 48 hours. Across the solar system, humanity's warriors prepared for battle. The Council had no idea that their comfortable world was about to be shattered. Earth's revenge would be swift, silent, and absolutely devastating. The silent blade was about to strike, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Council space station Apex 1 floated peacefully in orbit around Alpha Centauri. Its commander, High Officer Reed of the Council forces, was enjoying his morning meal when the alarms began blaring. "Impossible," he shouted, staring at the massive human warship that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. The station's sensors hadn't detected any approach. No warp signatures. Nothing. Before he could react, similar reports flooded in from 11 other major Council stations. Human ships had appeared simultaneously across Council space, their dark hulls reflecting no light, their weapons already locked on critical systems. Admiral Miller stood on the bridge of the EFS Phantom, watching as panic spread through the Council forces. "Send the message," he ordered. His communications officer nodded, and across all Council frequencies, Earth's declaration played. "For 50 years, you have oppressed us. Today that ends." The Council's response was predictable. Their defense fleets jumped into battle positions, their newest warships charging weapons. But when they tried to fire, nothing happened. "Sir, our weapons are offline." The Council ship's crews reported in panic. "All systems are being locked out." Earth's infiltrators had done their work well. Years of hidden viruses and backdoors activated simultaneously, turning the Council's mighty warships into helpless hulks floating in space. Captain Stone's Ghost Squadron struck first. Their ships, still invisible to Council sensors, disabled the massive defense platforms around each station. Precisely targeted shots destroyed weapon systems while leaving civilian areas untouched. "Remember," Stone transmitted to her crews, "we show them we're better than they are." No civilian casualties. Inside Apex One, High Officer Reed watched in horror as Earth's forces systematically dismantled the Council's defenses. Their tactics were perfect, their coordination flawless. Most shocking was their precision. They destroyed only military targets, protecting civilian lives even as they crushed the Council's military might. "How?" he whispered. "They were supposed to be primitives. Savages." Director White's voice answered over the station's comm system. "You believe your own propaganda, Reed. That was your first mistake." Across Council space, the scene repeated. Earth's ships appeared, disabled defenses, and took control with surgical precision. The mighty Council fleet, pride of the galaxy, found itself helpless before the very species they had dismissed as inferior. In the Council's central command, panic turned to chaos. Their best tactical AIs could find no solution, no weakness in the human attack. Every countermeasure they tried had already been anticipated and neutralized. "Send the emergency call." The Council's Supreme Commander ordered. All allied species must send ships immediately. But when the call went out, silence answered. The allies they had counted on were not responding. Earth's information warfare had struck there too, revealing decades of Council manipulation and corruption. Admiral Miller watched from his command center as reports of victory came in from all sectors. "Phase 1 complete," he announced. "All primary targets secured. Minimal casualties on both sides." The Council's arrogance had been their downfall. They had expected humanity to attack like they would, with overwhelming force and superior numbers. Instead, humanity had struck like a master martial artist, using the Council's strength against them. "Begin Phase 2, Miller ordered. "Broadcast the evidence. Let every species in Council space see the truth." Across thousands of worlds, beings of all species watched in shock as proof of Council corruption played on every channel. Records of theft, exploitation, and manipulation spanning centuries appeared on every screen. The Council's carefully maintained image of benevolent leadership shattered in hours. Their own citizens began demanding answers, their client species began declaring independence, and their military leaders found themselves unable to respond. High Officer Reed sat in his command chair, watching Earth's forces secure his station with professional efficiency. "We should have listened," he said to no one in particular. "We should have treated them as equals." The first strike was complete, but Earth's revenge was far from over. The Council was about to learn that humanity had only begun to show its true capabilities. The galaxy watched in awe as humanity's carefully planned vengeance unfolded. The Council's age of dominance was ending, and a new era was about to begin. The Grand Council chamber on their capital world hadn't seen such chaos in 1,000 years. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted over each other as reports of Earth's devastating first strike continued to pour in. "This is outrageous," bellowed Council Leader Marcus, his tentacles turning pale with rage. "I demand every member species commit their fleets to crush these humans immediately." The chamber fell silent as Ambassador Tom from the Rigel system stood up. "No," he said simply. "We've seen the evidence. You've been lying to all of us." Across the massive chamber, other representatives began standing. Species that had been under Council control for centuries were finally speaking out. "The humans showed us proof of how you stole resources from our colonies," said the representative from Proxima. "You claimed pirates were responsible, but it was Council ships all along." Director White watched the Council session through secured feeds, a satisfied smile on her face. "The House of Cards is falling," she transmitted to Admiral Miller. "They're turning on each other exactly as we predicted." The Council's emergency session dissolved into accusations and threats. Species that had suffered under their rule for generations were now openly defying their authority. The carefully maintained facade of unity crumbled in hours. "Send in our diplomatic teams," Admiral Miller ordered. "It's time to drive the final wedge between them." Earth's ambassadors, who had been waiting in stealth ships around the Council capital, began making contact with individual species. They offered evidence of specific crimes against each race, along with proposals for new alliances. "Your people were denied advanced medical technology," Ambassador Roberts explained to the Centaurian delegation. "The Council claimed you weren't ready, but they were selling it to others for profit." In orbit around major Council worlds, more Earth ships appeared. But unlike the military vessels that had struck the stations, these were hospital ships and aid vessels. They offered help to worlds that had been kept deliberately poor by Council policies. "See the difference," Captain Stone broadcast as her ships delivered medical supplies to a colony that had been suffering under Council restrictions. "We could have come with weapons, but we chose to bring help instead." The Council's desperate attempts to rally support failed spectacularly. Their calls for military action against Earth were met with open rebellion. Several species declared their independence on the spot, asking for Earth's protection against Council retaliation. Admiral Miller watched from the ESS Phantom as the Council's authority crumbled. "They spent so long playing their political games," he said to his crew. "They forgot what real leadership looks like." The evidence Earth released caused riots on Council worlds. Citizens who had believed in their government's benevolence for generations learned the truth about corruption that went to the highest levels. "The Council is attempting to delete their records," Director White reported. "But we already have copies of everything. Their every crime is preserved and broadcast across the galaxy." In a desperate move, the Council ordered its remaining loyal forces to attack Earth's fleet. The response was immediate and devastating. The ships they sent found their systems completely under human control, their weapons useless, their engines responding to Earth's commands. "Did you really think we hadn't prepared for this?" Admiral Miller's voice echoed through every Council ship. "Your own arrogance defeated you before we fired a single shot." As the fourth day of Earth's operation drew to a close, the Council's power was in shambles. More than half their member species had declared independence, their military was effectively neutralized, and their political authority was destroyed. In the Council chamber, Leader Marcus found himself increasingly alone as representatives abandoned their seats. The mighty Council, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, was collapsing. "Perhaps," Ambassador Tom suggested quietly, "it's time to discuss surrender terms with Earth." The Council's folly had been thinking they could keep humanity down forever. Now they were learning that some species were simply too determined, too resourceful, and too clever to be oppressed. The galaxy was changing, and Earth was leading that change. Deep within the Council's secret archives, Earth's intelligence teams made discovery after shocking discovery. Director White stood among rows of classified data crystals, each containing evidence of crimes that spanned centuries. "It's worse than we thought," she transmitted to Admiral Miller. "They weren't just exploiting us. They were systematically destroying any species that showed too much potential. The archives revealed a pattern of deliberate sabotage. Whenever a species developed too quickly or showed signs of surpassing Council technology, they would face mysterious accidents, economic collapse, or sudden resource shortages. Earth's intelligence officers worked tirelessly, decoding files and broadcasting the truth to every corner of the galaxy. The Council's greatest fear wasn't violence or chaos, it was competition. "Look at this," an analyst called out, pulling up ancient records. They destroyed an entire civilization's water supply because they developed better energy technology than the Council. Admiral Miller's fleet now surrounded the Council capital world, their stealth ships creating an invisible net that nothing could escape through. Inside the Council's magnificent towers, more secrets were being exposed. "We found their resource theft operation," Captain Stone reported. Her teams had discovered massive underground vaults filled with technology and resources stolen from developing worlds. They'd been hoarding innovations that could have saved millions of lives. The Council's remaining leaders tried desperately to maintain control, but their own records condemned them. Files showed how they had engineered conflicts between species to keep them weak, how they had stolen scientific breakthroughs and erased the evidence. "Your entire civilization is built on lies," Admiral Miller broadcast to the Council chambers. "Every tower, every achievement, every advancement, all stolen from the species you claim to protect." In response, several Council members attempted to flee using secret escape ships. They found their vessels completely under human control, their secret escape routes already mapped and blocked by Earth's forces. "Did you think we wouldn't find your hidden tunnels?" Director White's voice came through their ship's speakers. "We've had agents in your ranks for years. We know all your secrets now." The most damning evidence came from the Council's genetic manipulation programs. They had secretly altered other species, making them more docile, less innovative, easier to control. Only humanity had escaped this fate, protected by their initial quarantine of Earth. "Release this data immediately," Admiral Miller ordered. "Every species deserves to know what was done to them." The response was immediate and violent. Worlds that had been loyal to the Council for generations erupted in revolution. The truth of their genetic manipulation was the final straw that broke centuries of control. Council leader Marcus made one last desperate attempt to maintain power. He tried to activate a doomsday weapon hidden beneath the capital world, a final insurance policy against rebellion. "Attempting to destroy your own capital." Director White's voice came through as the weapon failed to activate. "We disabled that 6 months ago. Did you really think we'd leave such a threat in place?" The Council's web of lies unraveled completely. Species they had kept apart for centuries discovered shared histories of resistance and rebellion. Civilizations they had pitched against each other found common cause in their hatred of Council manipulation. "Your greatest crime," Admiral Miller addressed the remaining Council leaders, "wasn't the theft or the lies. It was denying the galaxy a chance to grow, to innovate, to reach its true potential." In orbit around the capital, Earth's fleet maintained their perfect blockade. No ships entered or left without their permission. The mighty Council, which had ruled through deception for so long, found themselves trapped by the very species they had tried to suppress. "Prepare for transition," Admiral Miller ordered. "The old Council is finished. It's time to help build something better." The great deception was exposed, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not just taken revenge. They had liberated countless species from centuries of hidden oppression. The Council's age of lies was ending. A new era of truth was about to begin. The grand meeting hall on Earth's biggest space station, Hope Point, was filled with representatives from over 1,000 species. Where once the Council had ruled through fear and manipulation, now there was open dialogue. Admiral Miller stood at the central podium, his uniform crisp as he addressed the gathered delegates. "We aren't here to create a new empire. We're here to build something better, together." The Earth delegation had spent weeks preparing their proposal. Instead of the Council's centralized control, they suggested a federation where each species would have true representation and voting rights. No more secret meetings, Miller continued. No more hidden agendas. Every decision, every vote, every policy will be open for all to see. Director White presented the evidence of Council corruption one final time, but now with a different purpose. We learn from history, she explained, so we don't repeat it. These archives will remain open, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. The first proposal was radical, a complete restructuring of galactic trade. The Council's unfair trade restrictions would be replaced with open markets and fair competition. Species that had been kept artificially poor would receive development aid. Your technology, your resources, your innovations belong to you, Ambassador Roberts assured the gathered species. Earth will share our advancements, but will never force our ways upon others. The former Council races were surprised by Earth's approach. They had expected humanity to simply take control, to become the new tyrants. Instead, they found humans working to create true equality. We've seen enough of empires, Captain Stone told a group of worried delegates. Earth doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to help it grow. New laws were drafted protecting developing species. No longer would advanced civilizations be allowed to exploit or manipulate younger races. Each species would be free to develop at their own pace, with optional guidance if requested. The strong protecting the weak, Miller explained. Not controlling them, not exploiting them, but helping them reach their full potential. A joint military force was proposed, with ships and crews from all member species. Its primary mission would be defending against external threats and preventing any single power from dominating others. No more secret police, Director White announced. No more hidden surveillance. The new Federation's security forces will be transparent and accountable to all. The former Council worlds began to see the benefits of Earth's approach. Trade increased, cultural exchanges flourished, and innovation exploded as artificial barriers were removed. Species that had been enemies under Council rule found common ground in building a better future. Look at what we can achieve together, Miller said, showing holographic images of joint scientific projects already underway. This is just the beginning. Several former Council races formally requested Earth's protection, not from fear, but from respect. They had seen how humanity handled power, with responsibility and restraint. We accept your trust, Ambassador Roberts told them, and we will honor it. But remember, you are not our subjects. You are our equals. As the new Galactic Charter took shape, Earth made sure to include strong protections against corruption. No species or group would be allowed to accumulate the kind of unchecked power the Council had wielded. Power should serve the people, Miller declared, not control them. That's the fundamental difference between the old way and the new. The session ended with a historic vote. The gathered species unanimously approved the new charter, creating the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. Earth would serve not as rulers, but as guardians of this new order. Remember this day, Admiral Miller said as the charter was signed, not as the day Earth won, but as the day the galaxy chose freedom. The new order was taking shape, built not on fear and deception, but on cooperation and mutual respect. The galaxy was entering a new age, and for the first time in centuries, the future looked bright. Earth had not just taken revenge. They had created something truly revolutionary. A galaxy where every species could reach for the stars without fear of being struck down. The age of oppression was over. The age of freedom had begun. 1 year after Earth's decisive strike, the galaxy had transformed. The gleaming spires of the new Federation headquarters on Earth's moon stood as a symbol of change, its transparent walls representing the new era of openness. Admiral Miller, now elected as the first Federation security commander, stood watching ships from 100 different species dock at the lunar port. Each vessel represented a civilization freed from Council control, now working together in true partnership. The trial starts tomorrow, Director White reminded him, entering his office. The former council leaders will finally face justice. The trial would be public, broadcast across every world in the Federation. Unlike the Council's secret tribunals, this would be open and fair. Even the accused would have rights and proper defense. "Have you seen the latest development reports?" White asked, displaying holographic statistics. Worlds that had struggled under Council restrictions were flourishing. Trade was booming, science was advancing, and cultural exchanges were creating new forms of art and music. "We did more than win a war," Miller replied. "We started a renaissance." The former council races had surprised everyone with their adaptability. Once freed from manipulation and control, they showed remarkable talent for innovation and creativity. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together on joint projects. "The education initiative is exceeding all expectations," reported Ambassador Roberts, joining them. "Worlds that never had access to advanced learning are producing brilliant new scientists and leaders." But not everything was perfect. Some former council loyalists had gone into hiding, promising revenge. Pirate groups tried to take advantage of the transition period. Yet the new Federation fleet, crewed by members of all species, handled these challenges effectively. "It's not about power anymore," Captain Stone explained to a group of new recruits. "It's about responsibility. We protect freedom, not control it." The biggest change was in how species interacted. The Council had kept them separate, afraid of what they might achieve together. Now mixed crews were common, and interspecies families were no longer forbidden. "Look at this," Miller said, showing a video of children from different species playing together in a new Federation school. "This is what victory really means." The trial of former council leaders began with a surprise. Instead of denying their crimes, many confessed, seeming almost relieved to finally speak the truth. They described centuries of manipulation, but also expressed genuine remorse. "We became what we originally fought against," one former council leader testified. "We started with good intentions but lost our way through fear and greed." The Federation's response demonstrated the difference between Earth's justice and council oppression. Those who showed genuine remorse and helped repair the damage they'd caused received lighter sentences. Those who remained defiant faced longer terms, but still with basic rights protected. "Justice without vengeance," Miller explained to the Federation Assembly. "We prove our strength not by how we punish enemies, but by how we treat those in our power." Earth's position in the galaxy had changed dramatically. Other species now looked to humans not as conquerors, but as protectors and guides. Earth's universities were filled with alien students, eager to learn from the species that had freed them. Our revenge wasn't destroying the Council, Director White realized. It was showing the galaxy a better way to live. As the first year of the Federation ended, a ceremony was held to commemorate both victory and transformation. Representatives from every member species gathered to plant a garden of trees from their homeworlds in Federation Park. "These trees will grow together," Admiral Miller said in his speech, "just as our civilizations grow together. Different, yet supporting each other, creating something more beautiful than any could alone." The galaxy had changed forever. The Council's fall had led not to chaos, but to a new age of cooperation and progress. Earth had achieved something far greater than mere revenge. They had created a future where all species could thrive together. As the ceremony ended, Miller looked at the stars visible through the dome. Somewhere out there, new civilizations were emerging. They would find not an oppressive council waiting to exploit them, but a federation ready to welcome them as equals. The price of victory had been high, but the reward was beyond measure. A galaxy finally free to reach its full potential.